channel. We'd really appreciate it if you'd like to support us by keeping our lights on. You can throw us a Rumble rant or a super chat, or you can go to our website. We are currently seeking sponsors. If you are a business or a candidate and you'd like to help us keep our lights on, please let us know, or a PAC. And you'd like to invest in what we have coming down the pipe for 2025.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
2025 is the next year. Then please do. And I think that's all the housekeeping, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
What's up, guys? We missed you, Jessica and Stu.
We did.
Yes.
It was very weird. If you'd missed last episode, Jessica and Stu were not here. We had a guest. It was me, Abby, and our guest, Lauren. And it was really weird because Abby's chair was empty because she was sitting in Jessica's seat. And I don't know where to look because I looked like at the two people. So I was like eyes on Lauren the whole time because I was like, I don't know where else to look. There's nowhere else to go because the chair was empty. I kept looking at the empty chair.
Yes, you guys did a great job without me. It was a great episode. It was great to tune in and hear from Lauren. She had great insight.
She's been around the block.
Yeah.
She's done the things.
Very informative and good conversation. You guys did a great job.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time.
I was thinking when we were going around saying our names, like, I was like, oh, wait, Jessica's not here tonight. And I'm Abby. I don't know. I don't know what to do with my hands.
We hope that you are doing well and getting ready for this Christmas season, y'all. Hanukkah season. Hanukkah is so late this year. It's crazy
it
weird.
It starts on Christmas night,
The
right?
first night of Hanukkah is Christmas night. So, like, Christmas Day goes into Christmas night and the first light. And then the last night, so when we light all the candles, is on January 1st.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're having our synagogue Hanukkah party on January 1st.
Ooh.
So we're doing like a New Year's.
Late in the day, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was the stipulation. And we're doing like comfort food.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Well, greasy, latkes with lots, all the things.
So
great.
my niece Caroline, she's a New Year's baby. She was the first baby born in the hospital in Dayton, Ohio.
Was she
born.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so she turns 13 on New Year's Day, and she's wanted to go to New York City to see the ball drop and like celebrate her birthday. And her dad is taking her this year.
This
so
is
they're
the
gonna
year.
like camp out in
Fun.
Times Square all day on New Year's Eve.
Oh man, that sounds stressful.
And I'm like, have at it, girl. Like,
I couldn't.
so
I always hear it's like a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm
not an
good.
experience that I feel like I
I've
need
been
to
to
have.
Times Square. I'm good with going in the middle of the summer.
I'm like, when you have to wear Depends and
Well,
and
that's
have
what
a
I was
shirt.
about.
That's
Like-
literally what I was
like-
thinking.
I'm
I
like,
don't
is
think
it
so.
really worth
Ugh.
it?
Is it worth it? No. I'm going to go with a no, but we'll have to hear all about her experience in our next episode.
Shout out to Caroline.
We'll live vicariously through her in this experience.
Oh my gosh. All right. Anybody got any updates?
No, it's been all quiet. I have done nothing since the last time I think I was on the show. So
You've done nothing.
You've done nothing.
Okay,
I've done nothing.
Jessica.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. But that's okay. No. So what about you, Ab?
It's been quiet. I mean, it's been a flurry of activity. We had some things in town. We had the Christmas tree lighting, which that was the night before our last episode.
I
We
don't
lit up
remember all the
Christmas
days
tree.
already.
We had a citywide
possible.
employee lunch last Friday. I participated in Breakfast with Santa on Saturday morning at the fire
Woohoo!
station, and then Wreaths Across America right after that. So that was pretty cool. That was
Fun.
my first time ever participating in that. It was really
Very
very
cool.
cool. Yeah. So
I've barely gotten out of my pajamas for like the last 3 weeks. Really have.
Sounds wonderful. No,
that used to
I
be my old life. I always used to take the last 2 weeks of the year off from work when I was in public accounting because it was tax and nothing was going on at the end of the year for tax. But not anymore. Now I'm in private. It's like, oh, we got to close out the books for year end. No,
Come on.
No vacation time at the end of the year.
Yeah.
No.
But I get to work from home, so I can still do it for my
Yeah,
my
I guess.
pajamas.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
That's the advantage.
yeah.
No.
I've been raking in the dough, working lots of hours. So.
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, that's
You're
great.
in.
That's love
You're
it.
in. That's where all the money is.
That's it. That's it. No, we had an interesting couple weeks. Like my kids had back-to-back Christmas shows, and then in 2 days, and then the next day, my daughter had a swim championship up in Stewart on Saturday morning. Which I don't know if anybody remembers how the weather was on Saturday, but it was not.
Last Saturday?
Yeah, it was
Wasn't
not.
it
I don't know.
rainy?
It was not a fun
And
day to
cold,
be.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was rainy
Yeah.
and it was windy.
Rainy, windy, and
Yeah.
cold, and we
Yeah.
had to be on the pool deck all day.
Oh.
And she took off in one of her races. It was raining, and she still shaved a second and a half. I think the cold
wow.
water gave her a boost, so she shaved a second and a half off that race, and she saved 3 seconds off her backstroke.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we had it was an intense few days, and she
Good job.
was done by the end of that day. She's like, "I'm good, I'm done. I don't want to do anything else for like a week." And I'm like, "Well, dude, you still have a week of school, so lucky you." But we're definitely looking forward to a couple weeks off.
They got a full day tomorrow or half day?
They have a half day.
Yeah.
And then my baby turns 6 this weekend. I know. Isn't that crazy?
Wait till he turns 22.
No, I'm good, thanks. I'm going to stick with my babies, little babies. So, all right. Should we jump in?
Let's
Senator,
Bring it on.
welcome. Tell us who you are, where you represent, and a little bit about how you got to that spot. And then we'll go from there.
Sure. I am a native of New Jersey.
We won't hold that against you.
You know,
Well, maybe.
What exit?
Jersey gets a bad rap, but it's the Garden State. It's beautiful. Went to school in undergrad in New York. Got my graduate degree also in New York, NYU, and then Columbia. And really wanted to get into the family development business. My dad was strongly trying to discourage me from doing it. He said, you know, we work in an atmosphere where civil servants control our destiny, and it's a bunch of bureaucrats, and they all have these lemon chicken lunches and give each other awards. And he's like, just, you know, you have.
Oh, so you've been to the MPO.
He's like, so. Actually, I made that comment to someone today from a chamber, and they were like, "Oh no, we don't do the lemon chicken. That's actually $4 extra."
I was going to say, isn't that the fancier level?
And well, Jersey has better food. So. And
And water, right? The water.
So I had a few small businesses I started, and probably my dad said back at the time that it was unfortunately I was successful in doing those because I had only seen sort of good times, and he was a little concerned about that. That, you know, I guess when he started to enjoy some success, you want your kids to like appreciate and understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not every year is a World Series year. You know what I mean? And so at the end of 2006, we were under construction with a number of single-family homes. We would do large developments. And then we started getting offers from public companies for some of the lots that we had that were entitled, ready to be built. They were shovel-ready, but, you know, not like improved with roads or anything. And we were getting crazy offers from public companies. And my dad's like, listen, I don't have an Ivy League degree, but these numbers just don't pencil out. He's like, here's another sort of time of irrational exuberance, and he goes, the merry-go-round is about to end.
2006?
2006,
Yeah.
At the end of 2006, which was earlier than a lot of people sort of projected. And my brother and I are looking at my dad like, Dad's past peak. Like, the business has passed him by, and everything's going to be fine and great. And the Yankees are winning, you know, every other World Series. And we're like,
Not in 2003.
he was. It was actually 2004.
That they won. No. I'm talking about when the Marlins won.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Red Sox.
No,
coming
that
back
too.
For 3 games
That too.
down, and, yeah,
2003, yeah.
I went to
Marlins
Game
did
5
win.
in Miami.
Right.
I didn't go to New York when they won it.
So he's like, listen, we're gonna sell out all this stuff. We're just gonna all of our for sale stuff. We're gonna sell. And my brother and I are like, ugh. And he's like, listen, we're gonna build a war chest. We're gonna be great. And he was right. I mean, he like called it really, really, really early. And he's like, listen, nothing's gonna happen for the next 36 to 48 months. Go travel. Go write a book. Go, I don't know, study the stars. Go do something. Like, this is the time and then we'll come right back into the business, and we'll get it all going again. And we were really focusing on moving towards building rental communities and keeping them and holding them for multi-generations and stuff, which is like cool, but you don't see any return at all. It takes years. It takes a generation to see it. But he forecasted for the future. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to law school. He's like, great. You're going to go to New York, Boston. Where are you going? I go, Southern California or Southern Florida. If you're telling me I got a couple of years to. So we had newborn twins, identical twins, July of 2006. And I applied to one school, University of Miami, for law school. I was like, I don't mind living down there. And I had no intention of taking the bar exam or becoming a lawyer.
You just were going to go for the fun of it? Or to, like, learn?
So
yeah.
We grew up with what we call the 5 families, not the Mafia 5 families. But
Pizzo, are you sure?
Yeah. I'm as much Irish and Scottish as I am Italian. And those 5 families were Russian refugee families, concentration camp survivors. One of the families was the Kushners. The Kushners and the Halperts.
Oh, the Kushners.
The Kushners, yeah. So my dad actually was a manual laborer for Jared Kushner's grandfather like 57 years ago. That's where he got started in construction.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah. And
fact.
cool fact.
Interesting, yeah.
When my dad passed, we got an incredible, lovely letter from Charlie Kushner about my dad and the relationship that my grandfather had with his father, and it was really sweet. And so I came down here and I had no intention of doing anything law related whatsoever. And then I ended up getting the highest grade in criminal procedure, and they're like, you understand this in a way, rather unique and special way, you should be in a courtroom. And I was like, I root for the bad guys in the movie. What are you talking about? So like, no, you really should be. So I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. So I did a clerkship at the U.S. Attorney's Office. It was very Tom Clancy cool, but it was boring, and they only did like 1 trial a year. And so then someone's like, you should go to the state attorney's office. You'll get trial experience. It's fast paced. It's often a frenetic pace, but it's wonderful, and it's an invaluable experience. I'm like, all right. So I did my interview, and it was the greatest job in the world.
Really?
I couldn't wait to get up, and I didn't want to go to sleep, and it was crazy hours and crazy volume, but it was just wonderful. Like, you're the true gatekeeper of justice. People are like, oh, you make a good argument, you should be a defense attorney. I'm like, no, the true gatekeeper of justice is the signing of a pen to either charge somebody or not charge somebody. And you can get arrested for anything, right? But to actually see it through and be very diligent with someone's liberty, and not charge somebody with something is a really big deal. But if you were the bad guy and you were in my court, then I got you. And what I saw from there, my dad's like, "You're not coming home. What do they pay you?" I go, $38,000. He goes, "You can't buy socks. What do you do?" I go, "You told me to follow my heart and that everything would be fine." He's like, "I did."
Dang it.
He's like, I did. And he said, "You said, remember the do well part, and then you could do good later?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, I'm doing the good now." And he goes, "But you could do more well." I go, "You do well enough for everybody. It'll be fine." But one huge gap I saw that was around the time that there was a huge disconnect and divide happening between law enforcement and local communities. And appreciably, law enforcement on a more granular local level didn't want to engage because they didn't want to end up on someone's YouTube or taken out of context, edited only for that 5-second piece and not for the whole thing, and vice versa. And there's a big pushback with body cams, and I actually thought body cams helped. Because you recorded someone saying, "Do you know who I am?" and "Do you know who I know?" and then the totality of the circumstance was really exonerating for a lot, but still there were like this sort of disconnect. So the public was really pushing back on the number of shootings and homicides involving children, especially in Miami-Dade. And I took a hard look at the data when I was there, and I was like, listen, for every 100 shootings and homicides, not domestic violence related, because if it's DV, it's the husband or the wife that did it, And then if you put in those numbers, it really tips the scale and kind of it skews the numbers of the efficacy of closures by arrest and actual successful investigations that lead to convictions or to charges. If you take out domestic violence, we were down to 7%, which means for every 100 shootings in Miami-Dade County and homicides between strangers and random acts, only 7% were being closed by arrest.
Wow.
And so the state attorney's like, she kind of thought like I wanted to leave the office or do something. I'm like, no, here's like a 3 or 4 page draft of what I want to do. And she goes, all right, so you're not leaving? I go, well, you know what? If I can't do this, then I am leaving. Because I think I could probably do something in the private sector. And she's like, okay, let me take a look at it. And like that weekend, a 14-year-old was shot in the face, like right in front of a church that she was visiting, Mount Calvary Baptist Church in Liberty City. And I said, listen, I can solve that case. I go, it requires us leaving our desks and leaving the comfort of our flat whites from Starbucks and and go to court. Like, we need to get out in the street. And she's like, okay.
Is it the same state attorney that's there
Catherine
now?
Rundle, yeah. So she's like, what do you need? I was like, I need to set up shop at the homicide unit in the city of Miami that you see on the first 48, and I need to do it at the Northside District for Miami-Dade County. That's the largest concentration of shootings.
Yeah.
He's like, okay. And we got it from 7. I got like 1 secretary and all of the resources of those 2 departments, and we went from like 7%, I think, up to like 40 or 50%.
Wow.
Instead of waiting 1 or 2 years to go to trial on something, I would go to trial immediately. I'd be like, we're ready for trial. Call down the panel for their jury. We're ready to go. The community started seeing that, like, this crazy white dude from Jersey who drives around by himself is willing. And, when you're in a multi-family sort of housing structure or area, Liberty City, Overtown, whatever, and you're conspicuously seen at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, knocking on the door for the person that the street knows was the shooter who killed the 5-year-old or 10-year-old or 12-year-old, and they see you knock on the door, and all I want to do is just it wasn't probably a little bit of a gray area, but not illegal. But I would literally knock on the door and be like, I just wanted you to see my face because the next time you see me is going to be in the courtroom, and I'm gonna take your life because you killed that kid.
Yeah.
And then they would scramble and do crazy. And then this is like the area where kids were like taking
So
selfies.
mildly crazy things that you did.
Yeah, and the state attorney, Catherine Ronda, she would send me a text or an email. She's like, I heard that you were like in this neighborhood at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Are you
last
still
week.
alive?
What are you doing? I said, nothing's going to happen to me. Nothing's going to happen to me. Like, these communities feel like we're not watching, we don't care, right? There's, we'll have national and international interests because of particular economic reasons or social reasons, whatever it is, but these communities honestly believe we don't care, and I gotta admit, we really don't.
Right.
And now I can appreciate and understand a bunch of different components as to why law enforcement can engage, they're not successful, but the sheer volume, if you scroll through your local news channel, show me one that's a local news channel that doesn't have at least 2 shootings or homicides on the front page, right? So I said, they're right in believing that nobody cares and nobody's going to react. And then you add like sort of social elements. I mean, I can't speak for you guys, but I'm sure it could be so dissimilar. Growing up, the greatest power that my dad and mom had over me wasn't that they'd be angry at me. It was that they'd be disappointed in me.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed.
Which is like, my dad used to give me like a smack once in a while, but like the day I got into like the pyro stage and actually burned down the fig tree that was, the roots were planted and transplanted from 7 different Italian villages to get there into a suburban Jersey backyard, and like I lit it on fire. He was disappointed, didn't talk to me for like 2 days, and I was like, that was, if you have a generation of kids, black, white, Hispanic, rich, poor, from the mountains, from the coast, whatever, who don't feel that sort of dynamic of there's nobody that I'm worried about disappointing, or there's no one to make. So I had a 14-year-old girl shot, I remember, in the hip, and she's handcuffed to a bed because she broke the perimeter trying to get back into her mom's house after she had just been shot. And I told the officer, I go, take the handcuffs off. I was like, no, she breached the state. I go, dude, come on, man. She's a shooting victim. Like,
yeah.
He's like, but I set up her perimeter and she breached her. I go, just take the handcuffs off. So he finally took it off. And then I was like, listen, I appreciate it. She goes, Mr. P. I go, how do you know who I am? She goes, you're flaky. And now flaky to me was, you don't show up, you're not.
Right.
Flaky's different for kids. It meant like you're in everybody's business. And she goes,
It's like the opposite.
the opposite, right? It's like peruse. It doesn't actually mean to glance at. Peruse actually means to read very closely. She's like, Mr. P, everybody knows who you are. I was like, really? She goes, you're the only person that cares.
Oh.
Wow.
And the thing was, there's so many shootings, there were so many homicides.
Yeah.
Because of the volume, the detectives would show up and they'd ask people at the scene, what did you see? Well, when there's
Nobody saw
800
nothing.
pairs of eyes,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what community you're talking about, right? No one's saying anything, right?
Right.
And so we just treat it a little differently. So like on a Sunday afternoon, I would go up to Palm Beach County or sometimes over to the West Coast to where a kid might have been at grandma's house on a Sunday. I didn't go to their school. I didn't do a 2 o'clock in the morning interview. I certainly didn't pull them away from their home, bring them down for questioning with the detectives, but they didn't have those resources in that time. And so we just took it from a different angle. They found out and they realized that there was like this propensity to go ahead and relocate people if they were witnesses to something. And I used to tell people, I go, you shouldn't be relocated. We should be relocating the defendant to a state prison. You should be able to stay in your neighborhood. And,
If you witness something, you shouldn't be punished for witnessing something.
Well, the biggest, I guess, sort of paradigm shift in this generation, the last 20 years, whatever, is I don't know where Josie grew up. I don't know where Jessica grew up. I don't know where Abby grew up. But I assure you, when you were 10 years old, you knew your neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
And someone's mom said, I'm going to tell your mom that you, and it wasn't because she hated you. Well, so there were some mean women in it. But it was because she cared about, that neighbor cared about the fabric of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I'll, especially during the pandemic, I'm on a Zoom with 150 high school kids, talking about civics and stuff. And they're talking about how they're passionate about this and passionate about that. And I remember asking one young woman, Christine, I said, is that a roof out your back window? And she's like, yeah. And I go, is that your neighbor's house? And she's like, yeah. I go, you just told me how you like want to march on Washington, you want to do this, you want to do it. Could you get up right now, go over to your neighbor's house, knock on the door, and borrow sugar? And she's like, I don't know them. I go, you're talking to a state senator about your passion for something you want to do at Tallahassee or in Washington, D.C., but you don't even know your neighbor next door. And she's like, no. I'm like,
It's kind of where it starts.
There's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. There's a lot of transient, neighborhoods.
Yeah, part of
yeah.
that's a big thing here down here is the transient. It's just people are transient. Like, I can't tell you how many of my friends who I've become friends with that then are like, oh, we're moving.
Yep.
Oh, we're moving to Jersey. No offense.
Don't take it.
They're leaving for Jersey. Jersey, Maryland, wherever.
Do they know they're going to pay income tax now or no?
I think so.
Okay.
I warn everybody.
I tell everybody. But they don't listen.
And
They
it's
still
cold.
go. And it's cold. Then they call me and they're like, it's really cold. I'm like, I know. Why do you think I'm not leaving? So, wow. Okay. So, how did you get from there to where you are now?
So what sort of came out of all of this when I was a prosecutor was just the idea of like the lack of neighborhood and connectivity and connection and officer friendly and all that. So I kind of just developed this idea of like a bullseye in my head, sort of like a series of rings. So who you love and you and your husband and your kids are at the center of your universe, and that doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's always going to be the center of your universe. And then immediately outside of that, you have your neighborhood, right? Sometimes your neighborhood could be a high-rise building, but your neighborhood, and then your city, and then your county, and then your state, and then your federal government. So I'll ask seventh graders who's the president of the United States, and given whatever time it is, everyone knows who that is. Then I ask them who their mayor is. They have no idea.
Right.
And then I ask them, do you take the trash out for mom and dad once in a while? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do you have street lights outside? They're like, yeah. I'm like, is your neighborhood safe? And, your sidewalks? Does that have anything to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And they're like, no. And so I sort of, on that bullseye and all those rings, I kind of figured, where's the spot that has the most sort of influence and can make the largest impact? And about 80% of the laws that control the quality of your life and destiny are at the state level.
Yep.
And that has the most impact. And this was the first time that I did not want to engage in a team sport. And what I mean by that is the reputation of one individual is very often at the mercy of whatever the reputation of the worst person on a commission or a council is. And I just, even as a prosecutor, I saw grift and graft and all kinds of corruption at city levels and all that, and just cliche, stuff, very political stuff. And I really didn't want to be on a team sport. I wanted to be judged by me and based on merit. So I was like, all right, so I'll go here. So, of course, the first week that we're in organization session, some state representative asked me, I'll never forget, Melody Bell, sweetheart. She's like, Senator, you were a county commissioner or you were a city commissioner? And I was like, I was senior class president in high school in New Jersey. She's like, no, seriously. I'm like, seriously. So that was it. And I had a bunch of judges that were like, Mr. Pizzo, you seem very, discomfited by certain sections of statute. If you don't like them, then perhaps you should be in Tallahassee and change them. So.
And that was it. And you were like,
That
I'm
was
going to run. All right. So how?
But I was an independent for my whole life.
Okay.
And then you have to
File a party.
You basically got to file for a party in Florida.
Okay. So why did you choose to file as a Democrat?
Honestly, because I could see the trend and the wave getting redder and getting more Republican. I think everywhere in Florida in different sections. Sometimes because perhaps a solution or resolution was provided by one side, but more so because there was no message, no resolution, no solution provided by the other. And to a certain point, just yelling and screaming and complaining about the other side is not really an effective tool. It can spark a little bit of interest, but you got to have something to develop. And quite honestly, I like a challenge. And it's very easy, in all candor, and I think Abby knows that I'm pretty candid, it's very easy to be a Republican in Florida.
But down here?
Down in South Florida?
In South Florida?
In South Florida, outside of concentrated pockets, I mean, because you guys focus on like Palm Beach and Broward County.
Yeah.
I get it. But remember, my adult life and experience in Miami-Dade County was a trend. You've seen the trend in the last cycle. So, yeah, someone who won something by 9 points maybe in 2012, and then it lowered in 2016, and obviously in 2020 and 2022, and obviously this year. I mean, the national story was about how Miami-Dade County, sort of shifted. And there were a lot of, and then just general ethos of things is I was raised with my dad volunteered for JFK's campaign when he was 18, right? But he voted for Reagan. And there was, sort of a correlation between success he was enjoying and things that became important, and he just didn't feel good and didn't feel comfortable. And one of my dad's favorite lines was when Reagan said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party left me. So I have long believed since the commencing of this venture into politics, whatever, that the Democrats need a course correction. Because the Bobby Kennedy and the Harry Truman steady diet that I read about growing up, and the sort of political principles that I understood, we've lost them on one side, and then but the fiscal conservatism that I was also instructed on in varying levels of education is also sort of gone. I mean, our state
The events today.
Yeah.
our state
Hot mess
our
express.
state government is bloated. We are maxed out on the number of agencies we can have constitutionally, and with all due respect to the governor, running on deregulation, and then all of a sudden proposing things like a state OSHA and a state militia, and trying to expand agencies and spend more money, and you would be shocked, perhaps not, of the hundreds of millions of dollars that we've spent on things that don't
Never
deliver.
shocked at the government's ability to waste
Yeah.
my money.
Yeah.
Never, never, never.
So I am a golden rule kind of person, and to each his own. And I really, truly, honestly believe that I just want people to be happy, and I think have an equal opportunity, not an equal outcome. So my
That's
dad.
a very undemocratic, Democrat Party thing to say.
Yeah, but not 25 years ago.
No,
Right,
no,
yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
I know. I'm saying as of today, that's.
Josie, when I toured 12 or 13 colleges and universities around Florida right after October 7th of last year, just because I had a feeling and I wanted just to get from the Panhandle all the way down south to FIU, and we did like little exercises and things where I'd meet with a group. Sometimes it'd be 15 kids at a school, sometimes it's 150. And I remember it was in Central Florida, and I remember just reading, and I said, I'm going to read you something that a politician said. And I want you guys to tell me who it was, right?
I love this game.
And I went, and I just said this. I go, this might not be verbatim, but it's pretty close. Americans are right to be angry and afraid of illegal immigrants coming into this country, taking good, high-paying jobs, and everyone's like, Trump, and someone's like, Trump, and then someone threw out Newt Gingrich or something like that, trying to be. And I was like, no, that was Bill Clinton, the State of the Union address, January of 1995.
Yep. Yeah, he did. Say
And they're like,
that,
oh,
yeah.
so it's, Obama was not for same-sex marriage.
Nope.
Not just guided by his faith or whatever. He was not. The polls then really kind of shifted to a comfortable margin over the 50%, and he had a change of course. But just generally at its mindset, my brother sort of formed my idea of politics. My brother is a true Republican. So is his wife. But I remember, and I know this is gonna sound so weird and random, but I remember we were little kids, and my sister comes to the dinner table, and she's like, "Oh my God, Demi Moore and Bruce Willis are breaking up." And my brother goes, "Who cares?" Right?
That was a big deal.
But is everything else in such good order and okay and running smoothly?
That's what we need to be worried about.
That's going to consume. That's going to consume any of your capacity. Now, when you
Brandon
start talking
circuses.
about political, legislative sessions where we only have 60 straight days, your side poses these things sometimes just to get reactions, just to create division, but are very often loud distractions. Look over here,
Yeah.
because the underlying really important kitchen table issues, they don't either have the political will or the ability to actually solve those problems. So it's let's create distraction over here. I mean, I assure you, and it goes back to on the who cares thing. It's more of like it's none of my business. Like, okay, like be happy. Just don't make my kids have to ingest anything, digest anything, and be to the point. It's a bit of projection or illusory truth effect about indoctrination. Yeah, like they're okay, and I can raise my kids, and you can raise your kids, and as long as you don't create a safety hazard for mine and for the neighborhood, whatever, who cares? Love who you love and do what you. It's fine. I don't get a better place in heaven by trying to convert you over to my ideal of what it should be to be a patriarch, a person, or a person of faith. I don't get a better seat in heaven, and it's a bigger challenge to be. No, you don't. I'm pretty sure you don't.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, that's a theological debate, which
Okay, it
we
is.
can get into later. But I see your
But
point.
you have
I'm
your
like,
opinion. I have mine. I
Yeah.
respect whatever your
Yes.
opinion is. You respect mine.
Yes, ultimately, that's where we're going with.
But the other side of the aisle, to a large extent at the state level. I know it's kind of like nuanced, and who the hell watches the Florida Channel besides my mom? But
I watch it from time to time.
During legislative session,
Listen
it
to
might be
Listen
on.
to
But
it
I
on running
I
payroll.
take a lot of flack from my side because I will raise the issue, and I just had to do it the other day to a couple of my colleagues. I'm like, they're like, did you see this bill that so and so filed? I go, yeah, and the intent of that bill is more aimed towards getting a reaction out of you than it is to actually solve some. Let it go. Don't take the bait.
Yeah.
That's it. Just don't take the bait.
But it's so easy.
Did-
Right. Which is silly.
I have an Ivy League graduate degree.
Yeah.
I can't define woke. I can't. I never heard of a school in Florida that was teaching critical race theory. But I took a lot of flack because we were coming out of the pandemic and we had all agreed in a bipartisan, nonpartisan fashion, we need to do something about unemployment because I spent 320 days in Tallahassee in 2020 away from my family to get constituents their unemployment.
Well, that
including-
system has been broken
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
decades at this
So,
point.
so my Republican colleagues said, Pizzo, play prosecutor, have at it with Deloitte and on questioning them about the
I'm
website.
so ashamed of my alma mater
Yeah.
because they designed the Florida unemployment website,
$135 million.
and it
Yeah.
sucks.
But then they got a contract with DCF to like basically do the DCF website, and they were about to start. And I just asked a simple question, there's no third party that can monitor over your work. There's like, no, there's nobody. They literally said there's nobody that
Yeah.
that can.
It was their consulting arm, right? It was
Yeah, it
Deloitte
was-
Consulting.
yeah, right.
Oh,
So
bad.
that was like a huge priority. I was concerned people were going to have short-term memories about as soon as we get back to next session, let's make sure we do something about this. And we spent like a day and a half on transgender high school athletes. And I took a lot of flack from my side because I was like, what the hell are we talking about? Okay, when people were worried about where their next meal was coming from, whether or not they were going to get evicted from their home, and even landlords that didn't own 10,000 units, they only owned 2. They were retired teachers and didn't have a cap on their property taxes or their insurance, and they had debt service, and nobody was, concerned about that. Like, we had people that were desperately worrying about tomorrow. What the hell? We're talking about 11 kids over 6 years? Like, this is not what my constituents were pleading with me to do and to work on when I got back to session. Mm-hmm. And I realized it was like a red meat, really loud distraction from actually, hey, can we get like $100 extra a week for the unemployed going forward? Because I remember Republican, Independent, and Democrat, I remember the suffering. I remember the single moms in Palm Beach County.
Well, that was thanks to our county commission. But
No, but like, getting chemotherapy as a single mom, not do I pay the rent with the last amount of money, or
Right.
do I go for my chemo?
right.
Yeah.
Right? That's the important stuff, not Anyway,
I think they're both important. I mean, like when scholarships are being taken away from female athletes.
listen, my sister-in-law Megan was a professional basketball player. She's in the Hall of Fame for Fairleigh Dickinson. She got into Brown, but her parents couldn't pay for it. She took a scholarship, whatever. She has my niece Issa. She's wonderful. She just got into Georgetown and Notre Dame yesterday.
Wow.
They're
Congrats.
great female athletes. No, I don't want a boy playing on the field with them. But my point is, like,
Yes, people are suffering now. We need to
Yes.
do something for the people suffering now, not this theoretical like 10 athletes that are being impacted across the state.
grown bald men in Tallahassee should not be legislating about things kids are going through in such small numbers relative to the population of Florida, where the population is generally going through the same 5 or 6 sufferings, and that's not one of them,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
I think it's
Yeah.
so here's the thing. I don't disagree with the foundation or the concept of what you're saying at all, because we're facing insurance crisis like it's huge, like insurance, all of these
That's his big one of his big
ones, which
yeah.
I'm going to get to in a minute. But like, so I understand the impact, the economic impact, the kitchen table issues, of course. But like, as a parent who is watching things that are the bubbling up effect of the stuff that's going on, I do appreciate that there being caps on things of saying, no, we're going to stop this. We're not going to allow it. So no, it's only affecting maybe 11 kids in the entire state. But seeing the trends and the way that it's going and the allowances and the quick rolling down of the, the snowball effect. The snowball gets bigger as it rolls
slippery
down.
slope, maybe you're...
No.
Well, it's
as
creating the boundary before it gets
before it becomes
because
an issue.
before it comes in.
And not only
a
that, but I
thing.
mean, like, you watch the Florida Channel, but do you ever watch the Broward County School Board meetings?
I have.
I mean, the whole thing this past year, it came up a couple times where the mom who was employed by the district, had changed records for her son, now daughter, to be able to play volleyball at one of the high schools, and Like
Didn't tell people.
it's not a problem, but it's a problem, and it's like this stuff is going on at the school board level, and stuff is being allowed to happen, and it's like,
So it's to say that there has to be both.
yeah.
It doesn't. It's
We need to be able
unfortunate
to
that
walk
it doesn't.
and chew gum at the same time by
Right.
addressing issues that are coming up the pike that may be bigger issues in the future, but also making sure that things like insurance issues and condo reform and all of that kind of stuff are also priorities.
Right.
Yeah, so the bulk of the condo bill that passed last year I filed 6 years ago, and then I filed it again 5 years ago. It took 98 people dying in my district for anyone to pay attention. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I'm the only one of the 40 state senators in Florida who live in a condo, right? Who lives in a condo, but it took 98 people dying before anyone paid attention, and it had to do with transparency and accountability and what's generally a volunteer position. But my point, just going back to some of these social issues, is I'm not a good enough dad to think that I should go ahead and legislate certain things about, whether you consider it to be who your true and authentic self is, or you think that it's a mental health issue as to why we're in that situation or why that child is in that situation, whatever you think. That's their true selves, that's their authentic selves, or you're the opposite feeling, which is there's a mental health issue there, and we need to. I'm not a good enough dad that I should be opining about your kid. Of that, I can assure you, and I think. A large chunk of your side of the aisle is actually more libertarian than traditional sort of Republican, in the sense of like,
Agreed.
to each his own. There's just
Right.
a limit to what I want to pay for and engage it, right? So that's the truth. I mean, and when I said before that it's like it's easy to be a Republican, the only questions in debate really happening in Tallahassee mostly are Democrats asking questions about Republicans and vice versa. The Republicans really don't ask questions about any of these bills and any of these topics.
Which I find to be a problem.
It's a huge problem.
I find that to be a huge problem.
It's a huge problem, and they listen to surveys and polls and all that stuff. I mean, there's something liberating about being in the minority, and knowing that you don't want to burn the house down, but you should be asking the tough questions. You get to ask those tough questions. And
Well, it's about the holding to account. That's why we have the two parties in the first place, is to be able to make sure that the other side doesn't go off kilter too much. You always have to have somebody or a group of people to kind of hold that line and keep it what's important.
And so I read an excerpt from congressional testimony that one individual gave, and I read that to college students, and I said, now who said that? And they'll pick any number of very sort of liberal personalities of the last in the 20th century. It was actually Justice Scalia who talked about the importance of having a minority party and including that, and so that's the way the system is supposed to be. Icky, it's supposed to be messy, it's supposed to be uncomfortable, but they'll turn our microphone off, and it's not Congress. So you get to watch Trey Gowdy or even Gates sometimes going off, whatever, in Congress, and then people come to the gallery in the Senate like, this is like so subdued. They're all sedated, and I get
That's true.
I said hell of a on the floor. There was a private school in Miami, the Centner Academy, that was sending home emails to their
I know
kids.
that academy.
That was in my district, and they actually sent like notices, or were telling the kids. The math teacher, like in the 5th grade, was telling them, don't hug your parents if they've been vaccinated, because they can transfer like a disease to you,
They can like shed.
right? And I was like, listen, this is what's going on. We need this amendment. We shouldn't allow it. The kids in my district are a hell of a lot more important. And the Senate president called me up to the rostrum and was like, you can't curse on the floor. I'm like, what? Okay. And then another senator was like,
That's what we're worried about.
no, and then another senator, like a week later, she's like, they think I got a boob job. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I said hell of a. She said boob job. I'm not the FTC here, but
Well, okay, so let's talk about insurance.
let's talk about it.
Tell us, what is can you give a brief everyone knows the insurance, everyone knows that insurance costs are high and wackadoodle. Could you give a brief summary to why they're so bad for people who aren't aware of what's going on or how we got to this point, and what or if there are any solutions to fix it?
So, when you guys are watching a weekend sporting event, like NFL or NBA or
Yeah, my brother just texted me and said the Broncos are playing on Amazon if anyone wants to watch it. So I know what I'll be watching when I go home.
on the commercial break, your brother will likely see a commercial that says bundle and save.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We're the only state in the union that you can't bundle and save.
Right. Why?
Because the all states, the state farms, the larger carriers just will not, for the same reason that some oil companies just, even though they know there's oil under the ground, just won't do business or drilling in certain countries that are politically unstable. Large insurance carriers don't want to play in this market because it's just.
Well, it started after Andrew, right?
Well, it's also a sort of a reliance theory and competition. And what I mean by that is, and this speaks to a broader issue that I have with Florida, is it's like, we're the free state of Florida. Everybody's coming here. This is great. Make so-and-so Florida. But you don't remember anyone from the state level making some large announcement about a major corporation relocating to Florida over the past 4 or 5 years, do you? No. There's been no 5,000 jobs being transferred. No one's relocating large corporations to Florida because there's a sort of reliance theory. So companies that are sort of scouting for areas or where to set up shop or where to put a footprint take into account a whole checklist of things. They do their own MSA, and one of them is like how fast and swift civil court resolutions are. Like if a claim is filed or if there's a lawsuit, how long is that resolved for? Quality of education, test scores, things like that. I mean, I don't know. We've gone down in the SATs over the last few years. We're actually bad. We dropped like 47th in the country.
Yeah.
Right.
Raising my kids are in public school.
Right. So they look at all these sort of metrics, and one of them for a company is who are we competing with? And if you've heard of anecdotal stories of companies pulling out of certain countries. I lived in China when I was 16 in 1992, and I remember McDonald's built this big, huge McDonald's, 26 registers. I was excited because I was eating like local Chinese food while I was there, and I was like, Big Mac, it's universal. But like, and then all of a sudden the country's like, we need that corner back. And there was no title insurance, and there was no eminent domain. It's like
we're taking it back.
We're taking it back. I remember Xerox was there with a large footprint, and some people will pull out of countries because of instability. And one of those things could be economic uncertainty, instability. It's too easy to start an insurance company in Florida. It only costs $15 million for you and I to do a startup, start writing policies for people, and it gets to the point where we write policies, we have super competitive rates, we get you signed up. Then an actual storm event occurs, and we're like, oh, we're insolvent. We're insolvent. We hand those policies basically back to the state to pick up the slack. The state farms and also they don't want to be in that business where these little sort of pop-up startups. Florida also never required for these companies to actually hold reserves. So you and I, Josie and I go Josie and Jason Insurance, right? So we write a number of policies. And we begin collecting January 1st of 2025. We collect all of those premiums for the whole year. No storms, cross your fingers, everything worked out great. At the end of the year, that LLC that we formed, we make a distribution of all those premiums left over after our business expenses. We distribute to the partners because the LLC doesn't want to keep cash. We can ask the CPA in the account, right? So we distribute the cash. Well, January 1st, 2026, a big storm comes. What cash do we have on hand to go ahead and pay those claims? And so they were dispersing it to all of these. There were single-purpose entities formed for this specific, and then all of that money was dispersed. Now, Allstate's not going to like collect your premiums and then say, "Oh, sorry, we don't have any cash left in there." They don't want to compete with in those situations. So that's number one. There were a lot of commercial policies that were, a lot of corners were cut and people were underinsured. So Champlain Towers collapse sort of exposed that. When I started looking at policies for condo buildings, everything was accepted. I mean, it had to be like a meteor on the third Tuesday in March of an odd year for something to be covered, right? Meanwhile, and I tell people this all the time, whether it's your home, your auto, or a large commercial policy for $1 billion condo, your agent's still making 15% commission as it goes up. So I've asked condos to talk to their agents about sharpening the pencil a little bit. They can take a 5% commission. They're like, oh, I feel so bad. Yeah, it keeps going up. This is the best I could do. Well, you could sharpen your pencil on the, but I'm not like trying to, chase their livelihood either. So that one up. Also, if you had let's say Jessica had a legitimate $25,000 storm damage claim on her home. Up until 2 years ago, you needed the $25,000 to make the repair. And your bank, who you have a mortgage with, was like, you need to repair, and this is our security. So she would go hire an attorney, and the attorney would then, proceed with litigation. I don't know, 6 days to 600 days later, Jessica got her $25,000, and the attorney was able, because he prevailed on your behalf, to collect attorney's fees for it. but she didn't go out of pocket for the attorney up front. The attorney was able to collect fees. Well, 2 years ago, a then representative, now new senator with me, who's the general counsel for an insurance company, filed the bill that was supposed to be the end-all, be-all, that was consumer
I
friendly.
remember that, yeah.
And we were told within 12 to 18 months, you're going to see marked decreases in discounts on premiums. Well, the general counsel for the insurance company filed the bill that basically said you can no longer, work on a contingency basis for an attorney. So you have to, for personal lines, so you have to pay the attorney out of pocket. Well, if Jessica needs the $25,000, I assure you she doesn't have $50,000 laying around to go play litigator,
Right.
to go collect the 25. So if you know that, and you're not likely to be paying out policies because the Jessicas are not going to chase you because they can't afford to chase you, then we should have seen a premium. And new companies, there was what we called dry powder. There was a bunch of, private equity money sitting on the sidelines watching closely. They got into the market. There's been 10 or 11 new carriers that have come in, really kind of under the auspice, though, that none of them, only one of which I think is writing condo policies, but knowing if they do some of the lower level insurance amounts, they're not likely to be paying out Jessica. She doesn't have the war chest to go litigate. What they didn't take out were attorney's fees on surplus lines.
Explain.
If your private jet gets dinged in the same storm or your yacht gets dinged,
Oh.
you can still get attorney's fees provision. And I called that out on the floor and I thought it was ridiculous. One other thing that was put in the bill to depopulate Citizens Insurance because it was just growing too fast. It was supposed to be the last resort. But one of the things they put in there was that if you have an HO6, if you have a condo policy with Citizens, the actual homeowner's policy, and you're in a flood zone, you need flood insurance. Well, that makes sense for a single family home. And I'm on the 19th floor.
Yeah.
And, the Senate president, she was like, well, we'll talk about, I go, Madam President, I'm getting screwed and my constituents are getting screwed. Now, I make it a practice to vote against my self-interest here all the time that I'm in Tallahassee, almost exclusively. It looks like I'm like a masochist with this. But on this particular issue, my constituents are getting screwed. Explain to me why someone on the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th floor needs flood insurance when the building already has a flood policy, right? And it was a way to depopulate Citizens by a bunch of people who, I've learned in Tallahassee, make laws and policy that have never signed the front of a paycheck, who have never made a payroll, who may have read a book on economic theory, who still believe in a Keynesian model of NI minus T equals DI minus S equals C plus G plus I is GDP, but have never actually made a payroll and don't understand finance, which may seem like a nuance and a distinction without a difference, but it really is.
Right.
And it's scary of how many people are controlling your destiny, your quality of life in dollars.
Yay!
Wow.
And that goes for states that are blue states, and
Oh
red
yeah,
states
no,
and-
I have zero faith in most politicians know what the hell they're doing.
Well,
so.
I mean, the way I've always seen it, because I've been in small business now for like a decade and a half, and I was in public accounting before that, but like attorneys make the laws. Attorneys, like I just always have
special
felt
interest attorneys.
special
Yes,
interest
yes.
attorneys, and it's like they're the ones making the laws to benefit themselves, and so it's
Or
like
their clients that,
or their
that pay them a
clients.
lot.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
so it's like they're not working for us. They're not working for the homeowners or the insurance, the policyholders. They're working so that the insurance companies can keep more of the premiums and pay out less. And then if it's no longer a viable business model, they just pull up and leave the state.
So is there a solution?
Yeah, there is. We need greater stress tests, a greater barrier to entry, and I don't begrudge people for wanting to get in a particular business, and I think there's great innovation and ideas in certain places. But for this, you want financial stability. What came out of the Great Recession is we saw, on the too big to fail and banks, taking TARP money and all this stuff. I kind of think that you should have. I wasn't a fan of. I was for obviously for employees and all that stuff, but as far as a business model that just doesn't make economic sense objectively, I don't know that we should be throwing good money after bad and allowing that to continue. So I think there should be a higher threshold for entry here, and in which case that you would see if there was some reliance in the marketplace. We got clogged up. Our dockets got so bad at the civil level, which is really important. I know it's not sexy for the public to pay attention to, but it's something I watched closely, which was, insurance companies knew during the pandemic that nobody was going to trial. Also criminals. They knew that they should just stay in the county jail because they were getting day-for-day credit, and there was never a threat of an actual trial, so you couldn't use the hammer of let's go to trial,
So
right?
crazy.
So it's gaming, but companies game the system, and companies game the system, and they know that if something's, not going to be resolved and there's no push for it in the court system for a year or two, there's no incentive to pay, right? There's absolutely no incentive to pay. So on an actuarial basis, things need to be more sound. We need to allow for some, you can call it innovative steps, but they're pretty simple. So I've even proposed to the Office of Insurance Regulation, I have a number of condo buildings that would like to pull together sort of in a captive self-insurance situation. So 5 buildings in Fort Lauderdale can get together with 5 buildings in Tampa, similarly situated, and 5 in Jacksonville, and 3 in Tallahassee.
And because they're all geographically in different.
They're all the same name storm is not likely to hit them.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, like, you have a deductible on your homeowner's insurance, you have a deductible on your auto insurance.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about $100 million condo building, which is maybe 20 years ago seemed like some luxury, it's not anymore, right? We're talking, and we require under Florida Statute 718 for an appraisal every 3 years. If you have a condo that's 100 units, and let's say it has a $100 million valuation, okay? Every condo has a 5% deductible. That's the max they can take for Fannie and Freddie to go ahead and guarantee loans. They have a 5% deductible. So people need to understand the first $5 million of any storm damage is coming out of the owner's pocket anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people go, don't we have insurance? Yeah, but we have a
You got a deductible.
We have a 5% deductible. They're paying $5 million, right? Above that, your insurance company, the carrier, is not holding that policy and that entire risk. They're actually selling off and getting insurance, reinsurance, which has actually proved to be some of the more expensive components of those policies. So what we can do as a state, if we, in reality, and I just had this conversation today, outside and absent a complete collapse of the building, I don't think that you need to be insured for 100% of the value of the building. Because if you get into $20, $30 million in damage, you get to 20, 30% property loss on a structure like that, it's catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Cat 6, right? It's like something happened. The building might still be, you're not outside of a total collapse. So if the reinsurance component of that tier, right, of that level is proving to be really costly, but we reduce the amount that someone really has to be insured to like 70% maybe, well, then that's a huge cost savings right across the board. I think that brings it down to a level. Insurance companies like the idea, I think, but it really goes back to very simply political will. Mm-hmm. And over the past few years, it was easier to give $50,000 or $100,000 to a PC and let people just go along to get along and sort of do what they're told. But now, you know, a lot of the socially divisive issues were very successfully passed in Florida. It was tried on the national stage. It really didn't resonate. And so now people are like, yeah, that's great. Thumbs up. You're still my party. I need you to do something about my insurance.
I need you to fix this now.
And so both the Senate President, Ben Albritton, who's from Wauchula, and Danny Perez, who's from Miami, both of their speeches at an organization session a couple weeks ago, both featured. Danny Perez actually said we need to start having insurance bills that are written by legislators and not by insurance companies.
Yeah. Oh, novel idea.
Yeah.
It's crazy talent.
But it's encouraging to hear.
That is encouraging to hear. I'd love to see that because I know, I mean, I think that's the big sticker shock for a lot of people who do move here is even though they don't have state income tax here, the cost of insurance.
You're paying it.
We're paying it in insurance.
Yeah.
We're paying it in property taxes. And we're paying it in car insurance. Our car insurance is so much higher here than
But I park my car on the second floor of my building with one company, but they will not insure me 17 stories above that. Another thing is we have a pretty simple storm armor protection kind of device because 60% of property damage that insurance companies have to pay is wind-driven rain. We never had a provision in law to require a mitigation measure like that to reduce the premium. And they were loathsome we had the company went, they did the FIU wind tunnel test, the whole thing. CFO was there, everybody was there, legislators, and it was like, oh, this is a thumbs up. They're not comfortable, advancing and committing to that as number one. The captive thing is like allowed by law, but they really won't approve it.
Captive insurance company, like the pooling?
Like the self-insurance?
Yeah.
And think about it, when we're talking about that 5% deductible, if you got together with 100 buildings total and you all have a 5% deductible anyway, so basically you're on the hook for $5 million. If you have a $2 million insurance premium for that commercial, for that condo building, that's $200 million you guys have on hand. And one of your buildings in your pool is, even if they had a total collapse, is not going to exceed what you guys have cash on hand.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just not comfortable. And it wouldn't be a 15% commission. It'd be like a 3 or 4% management fee from like a Brown and Brown or a Marsh. And they're willing to do it. They advance the idea and crickets.
Maybe this session?
Yeah.
All right, so besides insurance, what other big things do you think we should see coming down the pipe for this session that you have seen so far? Or
we're maxed out at 20. We're maxed out at like 26 state agencies, all the alphabet soup, DEP and Commerce and DOT and all that stuff. So we can't get any larger, nor do I think we should. I think we can run a lot more efficiently, a lot more sort of lean. One of the agencies is the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, and they
I got to renew my license this month.
and but they license everyone from Abby as a CPA to the person who did your nails last week.
My nails aren't done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who you wanted to see
Who
last
I would
week.
love to go have my nails done.
But there are just too many things. It's too many things to too many people.
There's too many things to regulate.
Well, I think
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things that are licensed in this state that really, I mean,
Don't need to be
they
licensed.
don't need to be
You
licensed.
have to pay for them to tell you can work.
I can get a pilot license in 40 hours at the local airport, but it used to be 1,200. Now it's 900 hours to be your barber.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's 900 hours. It used to for
To
years.
become a barber?
It was
Well,
12.
I mean-
it was 1,200 hours. This is where Abby's gonna go. Well, you can imagine what could happen if you.
No,
don't
no,
Do you
that's
mean
not-
like
that's
a barber
definitely not
like
where I
that
was-
Yeah.
shaves
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
hair, but like
Yeah.
like that?
Barber's
This maybe.
just a male
No, I
hairdresser.
know what a barber is, but I'm like,
You're caught up on the beard. I'm like, it's everything.
no, because I can't understand how like going to a safety thing. A pilot, you can kill someone,
I mean,
whereas
You
a
kill multiple people.
multiple people.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a barber, the only way you could kill someone is if you slit their throat while you're shaving your neck. So I'm trying to understand the level of risk and why it's so many hours. That's my point. Is there's no
Likely, if
It'll
you go
grow
back
back.
to the legislative history on that, you had perhaps a lobbyist for a large chain that had people already in that particular
Great
position.
Clips.
and
Great
did-
Clips lobbyist.
No, I mean,
supercuts.
it's the way to stave off competition.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
No, 100%. No, I get that. I'm just the irony.
And I
of
mean,
it.
like the Florida Board of Accountancy. I mean, they're like they don't want people from New Jersey retiring to Florida and like transferring their CPA license down here. So they make it really hard.
And now there has to be some reciprocity for certain emergency situations. Like
Yeah.
we have 1.6 million condo doors, 26,000 associations. We only have 650 licensed structural engineers in the entire state of
That's
Florida.
that's a
crazy, yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So you know what? I will absolutely allow for a visiting engineer who wants to lend some expertise if they're from like Tokyo or Manhattan, like
Yeah.
people who are used to
The big
wind shear
buildings,
shift
yeah.
and
and earthquake.
shifting sands. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll take if somebody did the Burj, they can go ahead and take a peek at some of our high rises here. I mean,
Yeah.
they just released a report the Herald did last week
About the building sinking?
about buildings sinking.
Yeah. In Miami.
Yeah, I heard that.
Sunny
What?
I
Isles,
read
Bell
a,
Harbor,
I read
yeah.
a
I've been
article on
I've been
that, yeah.
I've been
Well, I mean, they've been talking about
You've been nursing a
I have been. I've been on Instagram a lot.
Olympic trial ice skating.
Yes,
that's
right. Me and my Olympic trial ice skating. Thank
Triple
you for
toe loop.
putting. Yep. Triple sow cow actually.
Oh,
well, like what's I
So
mean,
who was the Tanya Harding?
My 10-year-old. Just kidding.
what I mean, like, so I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline. I think it was over the weekend or something. What's the solution, or is there anything that can be done about the sinking buildings?
Yeah, I mean, there's a tower over in Italy that's been leaning for a while.
Ah, yes, been there. I've been there.
Yeah.
Got the
Oh,
picture.
that's funny.
Yeah, I mean,
Single-handedly held it up.
it's taller buildings. It's more difficult, but there are ways to do subsurface like injections and
Yeah.
and
Is it because of the ground soft?
Well,
Like,
so-
what's happening? here?
Florida's
Whether-
big sandbox.
I know.
whether you believe in sea level rise or you think we're at the end of another mini ice age and why sea levels are whatever,
The apocalypse is coming, guys.
just objectively, people think of sea level rise as like things coming over seawalls or coming into
No, it's
streets.
from
All
the
that.
ground.
It's actually high water
Yeah.
table is the biggest
Yeah.
issue, right? So there are sections in the city of Miami or just north of the city of Miami where the water table is coming within like 6 or 7 inches, and this is one of my principal concerns. It's not sexy, but I'm really concerned about septic tanks. So Broward
Oh, yeah.
County has
Yeah.
in excess of 80,000. Miami-Dade still has
Are they
101,000.
active or are they
That's
just buried?
Yeah, you said
Active septic? They're on active septic.
Miami-Dade has 101,000 septic tanks.
Wow.
The city of Hollywood, one of the cities I represent, half of the city is on septic.
Like
that's
active
crazy,
septic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know people who have septic tanks that they're switched to
Sewer, but
sewer,
they still have the tank.
have the tank that's still there. So these are like active septic.
Active, yeah.
Okay, that's crazy.
So my concern is when the water
Yeah.
table rises,
septic tanks.
it's going into the
Yeah.
sort of drainage field, and then it's also then going back down to the aquifer. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Gross.
It's 2024. It's the 21st century. We should not have coastal communities that are on septic tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, my old neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale, they switched in the early 2000s.
Yeah. I mean, Briny Breezes is still on
Yep.
septic.
Chip was talking about it.
How? Yeah, we were
Yeah,
talking about
well,
it last
last
night
night,
at Economic Development
But
Committee.
in September of 2019, we're having a delegation meeting with the Miami-Dade delegation, and the chairwoman at the time of the county commission. She's like, all right, let's hear from the senators and representatives, whatever. I'm like, listen, I've tried to get Miami Shores septic sewer conversion money. I tried to get this city, North Miami, I tried to get this and this. I can't get any of those funds if you guys won't go ahead and actually commit to rip up, repair, and replace your actually existing sanitary sewer infrastructure at the time with 65-year-old broken clay pipes. On top of which, the EPA had sued you as a county, and you entered into a consent decree that you had a certain schedule that you had to finish these things by, and you haven't done it, and you're nowhere on schedule. And I just remember she's like, Pizzo, stop talking about poop. And nobody
It's not sexy.
Well, here's the thing. It's like for the conversion of septic to sewer and to update the sewer system, and this goes for Broward County too.
I thought this was in Broward County.
No,
This is Miami-Dade.
it's a few $1 billion. Now, people are like, it's just on a numbers basis, standing alone, very expensive. But if you take the total assessed or market value that people rely on of those properties as a relation, it's de minimis. So if you have a $40,000 car and I tell you that you have a $2,000 repair, you're like, it sucks, but you're going to pay it, right?
Yep.
If you have a $400,000 home and you have a $7,000 bill, you're going to pay it. If you have probably between both counties $1 trillion worth of market value, and if I tell you need to spend 12 or 13 billion dollars, it's for it to survive.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, but here's the problem. We're term limited. I can serve as a senator. I got the lottery because I got 10 years because it was 4 and then 2 and then followed by 4. But, at max 10 years, right? Or 8 years in a term. People don't want to spend their political capital and they want to keep rising up, the political ladder. Nobody wants to campaign or spend that political capital on tough love, expensive measures that will benefit your children and mine.
No.
Because they're not sexy to talk about now, and it doesn't fit within the window.
My kids aren't living south of Palm Beach County, but no, I'm just kidding.
But I'm serious. Like
Yeah,
things that will
absolutely,
actually
100%.
save them.
Yeah,
And when I
their
get
future, a
all the
better
crap
future.
about the condo bills that we passed, they're
No
like,
pun intended.
no, but all the crap that I get about the condo bills, I'm like, listen, we all realized that the last 30 years, everyone was negligent and deferred maintenance and didn't do their due diligence and didn't meet their fiduciary obligations. So we were trying to provide remedies right now, but I'm a father, so what I'm also thinking is the next 30 years start today.
Yep. And that's on both sides of the aisle. They
Yeah.
don't, there's all
Well,
about what they're not
That's-
asking. Go ahead. I'll let you
That's
say,
what I
I'll
was
let you
just gonna
say it.
I was just going to say, so many of our representatives and senators don't ask the and then what question. So it's like we have to start thinking ahead. And so many of our capital projects and stuff in our municipalities can't be paid for because of poor fiscal management and everything else. And they've just kind of pushed everything to the side. And then they look for that handout from the state government or ultimately the federal government. And then there's all the strings get attached to it and all, and then it just kind of goes downhill from there. So asking that and then what question and then planning ahead is so very important. So how do you plan on getting that done?
I had the commitment I started the conversation, sort of saw in slow motion who was going to be in leadership and where things were going. And I'm also leveraging particular people's interests. So let's say, for instance, you have a certain issue, and I don't really want to be specific about it, but you'll follow what I'm saying. And someone says, no, the cause of the condition of this water is from this. And someone says, no, it's from this. Well, you might have people in leadership positions who, because of their livelihood, don't want it to be this, so they'll go ahead and accept that it's this. And if I'm saying that it's septic tanks and nutrients from septic tanks that are causing algal blooms and all that stuff, I could probably get funding for septic to sewer conversions as long as I don't think that this is contributing to it, which might be more rural. A rural application of something, and you leverage that, and I'm fine. It's okay to be selfish. You have to be selfish for your communities, and I think people need to be more comfortable being like, yeah, I need to be selfish for my residents. My kids actually want to live here. So when I go to a town hall I've done 450 people in Pompano Beach and 250 in Aventura 10 times, and Port St. Lucie and Orlando. I ask everybody that lives in a condo, raise your hand if you live in a condo. Everyone giggles. It's like kind of like a little audience kind of relaxation thing. And then I say, keep your hand up if you expect your son or daughter or your grandchild to live when the good Lord takes you, to live in that unit. And everybody puts their hand down. I go, so you're not really worried about the long-term sustainability of your building and resiliency in your future. You're worried about right now and what can I do for you right now. I get it, and we'll work on that, but I just want to sort of level set expectations you're stuck with the state senator who actually cares about tomorrow because my kids keep flipping a coin for who gets to live in the nice condo and actually worry about tomorrow. So I come from a place, we tease Jersey and Pennsylvania and the Northeast, but when my grandparents bought their house, they bought it with the idea and like a dream of 2 generations later living in that house and who gets the house, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't have that in Florida. The largest development firms don't own a lot of rental units, which sort of suggests that they don't have tremendous faith in the future of a certain community. And that's very telling. We built things in Northeast that my dad goes, I hope your great-grandchildren hold these and keep these. That's why I busted my butt for is for great-grandchildren I've never met and will never meet. Nobody has that legacy philosophy, and some small businesses do in South Florida, but that's it.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think it's because we're so transient down
Yes.
here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's changing, or do you think like that's still the case?
So Representative LaMarca and I actually, not with great fanfare or a lot of press about it, because we knew that it would morph into something, and there's still partisanship, and I don't have pride of authorship, but like 20 of my bills that I filed at one time, somebody else's name went on them, and they got passed miraculously the following year. But one thing we worked on was, and this is something that I think is an example that could work. We filed a bill to allow the establishment of the Office of Blue Economy, like the ocean economy, things that are related to to the economy, and it's going to be housed at FAU, which is cool. We don't even have like sort of continuity and a sort of culture or ethos about the coastal community. We have, it's all broken up. We have marine industries, we have the port, we have this, but not, I was just in Maine last week. We're building something up in Maine, and like the whole community there is just all integrated with each other, knows everybody, and it's
Yeah, no, we're definitely not that.
not at all. But we need some connective tissue.
Yeah.
It's not working with professional sports because we don't have like huge investments in even the long-term contracts of athletes here.
Right.
You know what I mean? We don't have.
The Marlins win the World Series, and then there's a fire sale right after.
And then it's like, this is the high time to sell and trade and get rid of it. So we don't have that. I hate Red Sox fans, but because no, but there's, I hated Roger Clemens until he became a Yankee. You know what I mean? But those are like, and just think about it. We don't have people that are
No, I know.
with a team for 15 years, or their whole careers.
Maybe college football, but that's about it.
Yeah, we don't
But
have
still
that.
so transient because it changes every year.
But
Very.
the Gators are the Gators, like you root for the Gators.
But when I say Joe DiMaggio, when I say Derek Jeter, like what team they're associated with,
Yes.
and
Yes.
who is that in Miami, or who is that in Broward?
Dan Marino.
Right. Yeah.
Laces
all I
out.
That's
That's all I
it.
got.
Now ask your kids if they know who Dan Marino is.
They might,
Okay, they might. Yeah.
but just because
Yeah.
it's they. Well,
yeah,
so
but you
like,
know what I mean.
because I think I'm hopeful because I do think that like my age group, like a lot of my age group friends are very much like, no, we're living in Florida. Our kids are born here. They're going to be raised here. And we're starting. That's why I'm asking if you see any change from your point of view, because I'm seeing it on the ground a little bit of a lot of not everyone. It's still, like I said before, I still have had a lot of friends over the last 10 years who have moved, but there's a solid group of people that are starting to become more and more, and it's becoming more and more of a thing to be prideful about and say, no, I was born and raised here.
Josie,
Like, I mean, I wasn't. I was born in Colorado, but I've been here since I was 5. So
when
go with
when
that.
when I left the state attorney's office, my wife said, she's like, all right, can your kids finally have a house? Because we had a couple of armed teenagers I was prosecuting follow me home from juvenile court. Stole one of our cars, committed robberies. So I moved the kids out for a few months until we relocated to North Dade from the South Dade area. And then when I left the state attorney's office, she's like, Captain America, could we like buy a house for the kids now? Can they have like a real childhood experience like we had growing up? I'm like, absolutely. So bought a nice house in North Miami Beach and Eastern Shores. And then January 2020, FDLE comes and pulls me out of a committee meeting. They intercepted a call out of jail that someone paid $47,000 to have me and my chief of staff killed, who was my trial partner,
Wow.
and where our bodies were to be taken on Chrome Avenue in Miami. And I FaceTime my boys. They're like, Senator, where are your kids? I'm like, they're home right now, and they go, they need to get out, and we're sending cars now. So I FaceTime. I'm like, guys, out the back door, Howard and Joel's now. They're like, got it. And I didn't have to explain it. They knew it, which is kind of scary and cool at the same time. That they had that kind of sort of idea. And they went out the back door until, we kept them safe. And April's like, when does this end? And I'm like, I don't know that it does end now that I'm in the role that we're in right now. So the day we moved in, I remember we're sitting in the foyer of the house, and we're like packed in. We're like, all right, cool. And it's like 3 o'clock in the 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they're like, so what do we do? I'm like, you go outside and you go knock on some doors and introduce yourself to the neighbors. They're like, okay. They're like really outgoing kids. So they go outside. Julian comes back about 30 minutes later. He's like, yeah, I met this guy. He seems nice. Blah, 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 blah. Jack, don't know where he is. And I'm like, oh, maybe this wasn't a good idea. Right? And we gave them phones because this was a few years removed from when they were 6 and pulled out of the house in the middle of the night and flown up to New Jersey in their pajamas when the first group of kids came, right? So they had phones, and it was more for like the Life 360 and location, whatever. And I'm like, dude, are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. Everything's cool. OMG, OMG. Right? I'm like doing proof of life with my, my toddler. And he comes back like an hour later. I'm like, dude, what's up? He's like, Miguel Cabrera is our next door neighbor.
Oh!
I was like, Miggy? He's like, yeah.
That's awesome.
And like 6 months later, I'm like, dude, it's 9:30. Where are you? And he's like, I'll be home. I go, where are you? It's 9:30. He's like, I'll be right there. I go, Jack, like all exclamation points, all caps. And he sends me a selfie. It's him and Jose Altuve from the Astros, who was visiting Miggy. And Jack was helping him set up his Instagram account. I'm like, you're good. You're good.
That's awesome.
And so we would have like Sunday Italian dinner, and everybody was invited. So remember, Lalo and Clarita came, and Howard and Joelle, and Lisa and her husband, and all these people came down, and it became like a neighborhood. I remember saying to one neighbor living across the street from the other one, I'm like, so is it cool that it's at our house now that we do these these neighborhood gatherings? I mean, which one of your and I remember Lalo said to me, he goes, we've never hung out with any of these people until you guys moved here. Until you invited us all over. I go, you guys have lived across the street from each other for 10, 15, 20 years. Like every hurricane that's passed, every alert, every kidnapping, I mean, everything that's happened within this. And they go, no, not till you guys got here and sort of invited everybody over. And I go, that's nuts. And that was more sort of an indicator of where we are or where we should be.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Yeah. I know we had neighbors move in a couple month or so ago. And we've tried to like introduce ourselves to them, but they haven't been very like receptive. My kids haven't met them yet because
do they have kids?
They're older. They look like they're older teenagers, and we've tried to like make eye contact and wave because we're friends with the neighbors like 2 or 3 houses down, and then a couple so we walk past their house a lot.
Yeah, that's awkward.
Yeah, and so but they won't like
engage.
No.
Go bring them something.
Yeah, I know. That's
it's
on
Christmas
time. Christmas time. I know.
That's when you have two hands.
When I have two, yeah, right.
How long ago did they move in?
They moved in. I
Before
don't know.
or after
they
the
flipped
election?
the house. Someone
Before or after the election?
Before.
So but they didn't put a yard sign up.
No.
So you don't even know if you want to go.
I don't know.
And she was the house
know
with
you
like
just
10
said-
yard signs.
My house had 10 yard signs, so they definitely know who we are.
How about?
But no, I mean, we'll be friends with them.
Were they there? So there was after Halloween.
We don't do Halloween.
No, but
They were there
they were there.
before Halloween.
Did they have candy out?
And we don't do Halloween, so I have no idea.
Oh,
And no one goes down our street. I live on a dead end street, so like kids don't.
Figuratively or literally?
No, literally.
Okay, all right.
Like there's no, you can't turn into.
I got it.
Literally,
I got you.
it's dead.
I got new
No
neighbors.
outlet. Yeah.
No,
I
no
got new
outlet, and people
neighbors.
still try. And my husband's always very sus of like, what's
Why are
happening?
you- what are you
Why
doing
are you
back
on our
here?
street? And he's watching them, and he's watching. He's like, someone's on the camera. Someone's on the ring. Hold on. Why are they on our street?
No, you know who Sebastian Maniscalco is?
Oh yeah.
I do not.
You do not?
You don't know a comedian?
He's great. So
I might buy if I heard stuff.
So he's
but-
like growing up. There'd be a knock on the door. Just random
Oh,
knock on the
I
door.
did see this. I know
And
who
you're
this
running
is.
to the door. It's like, who
Yeah.
is it? We got
Who is it?
company. You got
Cake.
Mom, put out the Sanka.
Yeah.
We got the Intimates. You couldn't touch the Intimates.
Yes,
You gotta,
the Intimates, that's right, the cake.
Today, there's a knock on the door.
Everyone
and
ducks.
everyone down. Your mom's doing the army crawl across the kitchen. It's the truth.
It's true.
So we're not
It's
civil
true.
with each other.
We're trying. I'm trying. No, I know.
I'm like, they didn't call first.
why
Pretend
are
we
they
know.
here? Why are they here? Usually, but we are friendly with a lot of the neighbor kids. So usually it's the kids, and they like.
See, I know all the dog parents in the neighborhood because
Yep, yep.
walking Buster around the neighborhood. You get to know all the
Yeah.
other dog parents, and so.
So all right. So what else should we be watching for in session this time?
Hopefully, it is incredibly boring, and we're deep into important issues that at a granular level and actually providing solutions. And the Senate President knows that, again, I don't have pride of authorship. So, when reporters ask me, what are some of the important bills you're working on? I'm like, I don't know, but you will find them in parts of bills that, maybe I'll do like a little, the number of bills I filed from the first year I was there up until last year have shrunk precipitously, knowing that if something's really important, it doesn't matter who gets it passed. And You guys remember we had the anti-riot bill a few
Yes.
years ago. And one thing that I do is, and this was explained to me, this phrase was given to me actually by a young legislative aide who was leaving. She goes, Senator, I just want to thank you for the experience. I go, didn't get to work with you much. She's like, no, just watching you. She's like, I see that you call in before you call out. You don't go right to Twitter to call somebody out. And I appreciate that, and I hope everybody else appreciates that. So Danny Burgess had that bill, and I had an amendment because I had people have come to my house to try to terrorize me or my family, whatever. So I put in an amendment because that was around the time that people were going to Marco Rubio's house. Someone accosted Sarah Huckabee at a restaurant. Remember Ivanka on a JetBlue flight. I was like, listen, there's no reason to allow protesting at someone's home.
Right.
Right? And everybody agreed with me. And this is when I realized there was a lot of just like even more BS. Everybody in the Senate agreed with me. They were like 100% behind it. They were like, yeah, nobody should come to our house. But the bill sponsor apologized, but I think the governor's office was inflexible about changing anything in the bill, even though that was like a no-brainer, right? So the following year, Keith Perry, SB 1664, we're at the end of session. I just asked just for S and giggles. And I said, Senator Perry, this is verbatim my amendment from last year. What's the difference? He goes, the bill sponsor. And that's okay, I guess, if it's something that doesn't. Well, that actually involves but what bothered me was 3 years ago I filed a bill to provide Narcan in high schools, right? And a lot of parents don't want to sort of face the reality that they'll call them respiratory or cardiac events, but they're overdoses. And I did 3 years ago, and I was told there's no data. I go up to the representative at the time who was on health policy on the House side, because the House won't hear it if the Senate won't hear it, the Senate won't hear it if the House won't hear it, chicken and egg. And she goes, there's no data to suggest there's a problem. I go, because it doesn't say overdose on records.
Right.
It says, and she goes, well, I just don't think it's necessary. So then I filed it again 2 years ago. She's like, it's still not necessary. And then all of a sudden, talking about opioids and task forces became vogue. The First Lady has an opioid task force. So Senator Boyd dutifully filed a bill for an opioid task force. And I said, Jim, can I suggest some language just to throw in there? He's like, yeah, sure. What is it? So he takes a look. He goes, this is a no-brainer. Why haven't we thought about this before? This is a good idea. Now, here's the thing. If I held a press conference, someone or some entity might have pushed back against that being in the bill. I said nothing, kept my mouth shut. He put it in as an amendment. He was very gracious about it, called it on the floor, saying this is Senator President's really good amendment. We should have done this earlier. What bothers me about that is because of partisanship of not hearing the bill, I think 14 or 15 kids have overdosed in high schools from the time that I first filed the bill when it went into effect until the time that it actually got in. And because of partisanship, teenagers died. That's what pisses me off.
Yeah.
When I file a bill on transparency and accountability for condo associations, and you find out Surfside at Champlain Towers had delayed their recertification a few years, and people were not getting records and not getting transparency, and you think that something that passed 3 or 4 years earlier would have provided that hook in the teeth to transparency, people might have been more aware of the condition and situation of what was going on. That bothers me, especially when you're helping and assisting families with funerals.
Yeah.
That's when partisanship sucks. So what I do, and it's like the worst kept secret in Tallahassee now, and people are like, Pizzo playing prosecutor, going after them. He knows the data, he knows the numbers. I actually send all of my questions to the bill sponsors on the Republican side 2 to 3 days before the bill is in front of me in a committee. And people just found out about that last year. And so when people think I'm doing the gotcha, making people look silly and stupid, they had 3 days heads up usually to go ahead and research and give an answer. And when they still show up and are reading from their cell phone from a Google search, it's on them. So there are some times where Senate President last year, I remember Pasadena, they called me up one time. I was like, and I knew she was like about to reprimand me for going hard at somebody on one particular bill. And I was like, Madam President, and she goes, no, relax. And I was like, what? She's like, go at him. He should have been prepared for this.
Yeah.
Go at him. Go ahead. But in years past before, it was literally people asking me, can you stop making him or her look bad?
Jeez.
And you know what? You're in the upper chamber of the 3rd largest state in the country, the 15th largest economy in the world. If you have a 1,300-word bill, which is shorter than most high school junior essays, and you can't define 2 terms I'm asking for on line 92 of your bill, and you can't or won't, and we're going to spend time working on those things and those issues. This is what we're going to spend our capacity and our availability on. Shame on you, and be prepared. So
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Shoot, I should have written it down. I had 2 more questions that popped up.
What is
I
your
didn't write them
district that you
Oh, that was
represent?
one of my questions. That was one.
I
of them.
represent 20 cities, so in the decennial census, the maps change and they get redistricted. So I used to have South Beach and Miami Beach all the way up to the Broward County and Dade County line. Now my district, the southern border, is Aventura and Sunny Isles to the south, and then it goes all the way up I have the entire coast of Broward all the way up to Deerfield Beach, to the county line where Beach is Palm Beach, and I go west to the Hard Rock to the Turnpike.
So you
20 cities.
So you abut to Polsky.
So I have Polsky is my northwest. So I have the eastern half of Pompano. She has the western half, and then I also have Senator Osgood. I have the eastern part of Fort Lauderdale. She has the western, and then also Barbara Sharif. I have a sliver of Miramar and a sliver of Davie, and then she's got the sections west of that.
And how long? When were you elected?
It's too long ago. 2018. 2018. Okay. So I did a 4-year term, and typically you do 4 years, and then 4 years you're out in 8, which I think a lot of people would have been happy with. But when they do the census and they do the redistricting, they basically, it's effectively flipping a coin, and they want to stagger, I guess, for continuity. So half of the districts, in this case the odd districts, got 2-year terms in 22 to 24.
That's why Polsky got a 2-year term.
And then it's followed by a 4-year term.
Know
so that's what I was saying, like, sometimes you win the legislative lottery. Instead of just 4 and 4 and out, you get 4, 2, and then 4.
But that means you have to run 3 elections.
Yeah, but I'm done. That was my last Senate election.
Okay. Do you have plans for what you're going to do next? Or is that,
Yes,
you want to talk about that?
So I turned 49 in May, and you have to be 50 to be on the Champions PGA Tour.
Nice.
What? And I'm going to go to qualifying school, and if I make it, then I'll be on the senior tour.
So politics, you'll be done?
Oh, I don't know about that. Listen, I think Abby's heard me say this before. If I'm the people that come through our office, the overwhelming majority. You guys met Kayla when I walked in. She started as a 19-year-old intern when she was at FSU as a political science major. Olivia, whose mom's a commissioner in Hollywood, dad's a 30-year cop from Hollywood, retired. I just try to impart and teach and do the best that I can. Whatever. If somebody wants to get up earlier, go to bed later, and work harder, I'll write their first campaign check if their heart's in the right place. I just, just all things considered, the pressures, the what it takes to do this job effectively, to be insulated to some extent from both criticism and bribery, and it's a unique situation. And I remember my dad saying when he was ill and dying, he said, your grandfather would turn over at his grave if you heard me say this, but I'm beginning to think you have to be somewhat, certainly mentally and certainly physically, and take care of yourself, but to some extent sort of insulated. He goes, they don't pay you anything. They say it's a part-time job. What do you make? I go, I make $29,671 a year. And he goes, you almost how do you insulate yourself from
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's a problem. Yeah.
It's a huge problem. George Washington said, okay, I'll take something, because he didn't want to accept any emolument for being president. He thought it was a high honor, and it was. And they said, well, General, you're not going to be the last president. We'd love for you to live forever, but someone's going to come after you, in this republic. And he goes, well, it should be an amount that no one takes the job basically because of the salary, but not so little that someone can't live, on it. They don't take it just for the salary. So the original presidential salary, do you know how much it was?
No, I don't.
$25,000, which is about what we get paid today.
Well,
so
I don't know about you, but I only make $1,800 a year as a Lighthouse Point commissioner.
I got you.
Do we have any questions?
No
comments?
questions. Diana Tobbs been lighting up the chat, just fact checking a senator about insurance and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for watching, Diana.
Thank you. Appreciate
And
it.
she says she promises she has never tried to accost Senator Pizzo at his residence or elsewhere.
Come on, knock on my door. We've been waiting for you.
So,
Oh man. All right. Well, I think we should start wrapping up soon, right?
I have to go back to my bat cave and plug in again. So
should probably close down then very soon. We want to keep you from important work or anything.
Anything you want us to be aware of, or how to follow you, or
social medias, or how do people?
yeah.
stay
So
in touch?
I want, regardless of what side it is, I'm at Send Pizzo. I'm very easy to find. I do my own social media because I don't trust anyone else's grammar. I'll like someone will slide into my DMs and I'm messaging with them, whatever, and they're like, "Will you make sure Senator Pizzo gets this message?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." Ask more of us. right? So when we did that whole bullseye, whatever, like everyone accosts city commissioners at Little League games and Publix but like ask more of us. We have huge control and influence and authority, and very little is asked of well, lots asked of me every day, but of my colleagues. Like they get to do ribbon cuttings and like do the Queen's Wave, whatever, but insist on more debates. Everyone remembers perhaps like a DeSantis-Gillum debate or Charlie Crist and DeSantis. You certainly remember historically, you know, the greatest lines coming out of debates, you know, with Reagan and Dukakis and all that stuff. But like, when's the last county commissioner, you know, debate or forum that you saw? Yeah, we need more of that. We need more sort of engagement.
We
I
just
think
need
it's
people
healthy.
to show up to commission meetings. I mean, like very few
I got to
people.
get back to that. That's my goal in 2024 is to start going back to my city council meetings as much as I can.
25.
2025. First, I
mean,
6 now.
Last night wasn't
Yeah.
a commission meeting; it was a committee meeting. But I mean, there was what, 3 people in the audience, and 2 were city commissioners.
And one was the head of recreation, I guess.
Parks and
Right,
Rec director.
right.
Yep.
So maybe they're watching, you know. But
People were on Zoom.
it goes back to the neighborhood
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's all good. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so our schedule for upcoming episodes is January 2nd. Is that our next episode?
Is it the 2nd?
That's the
We're
first.
doing the-
That's the
okay.
first Thursday. Do we want to? Are we doing it? I don't know. I just wanted to announce it. We'll watch our socials for confirmation.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
you have a
sounds about
busy
right.
New Year's Day.
I do have a very busy New Year's Day.
It's the last day of Hanukkah.
Very true. It's the last day of Hanukkah.
And I
Hanukkah
want to
party.
thank you for your service.
Oh yeah. Wait, which service?
You were an IDF.
I was. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. I forget people know that about me. Yes, I was. Thank you. Yeah, it was an experience.
I was there last December. I still have some hearing loss.
Ooh, where were you?
I could talk about a few places that I was
Yeah.
in Beirut and Kisufim, but one of my son's very close friends is signed up for IDF, and then October 7th happened. And I heard from colleges, universities, and campuses, whatever, and just staggering ignorance about certain issues. And so I went over there, and it was like my third or fourth trip. I did 2 split in one summer, but I've taken my kids there. Wonderful experience. I enrolled my kids in a Jewish day school when we moved down to Florida. My dad goes, "It's wonderful," you know. And we go back for Christmas, and he's like, "All right, the Pizzo kids are going to say grace around the table." It's usually like, you know, "We thank the Lord for all these gifts that you're about to receive through Jesus Christ," you know. And the boys were like, "Hamotzi lechem," we give thanks to God. And my dad's like, "I love America." He's like, "Listen, the Jewish kids went to Catholic school in the 50s and 60s, and today the Catholic kids go to Jewish day schools."
Listen, my Jewish kids, mine are half Jewish, and they go to the Christian school.
Yeah.
And my daughter is one of 5 Jewish kids in her class of 20 kids. So it's 25% mixed Jewish kids in her Christian, evangelical, or Lutheran Christian school. So yeah, exactly. It's
But I
very-
got to make, couldn't post the location, but I got to make dinner for 40. I was asked, would I be interested and okay with making dinner for 40 female IDF soldiers? And I said, I can make a mean fattoush. Let's go.
Yes.
And so it was an amazing experience. And then
That's
a
awesome.
number of legislators then took trips shortly thereafter.
So cool. Well, thank you very much for doing that and the support for sure. For sure. And thank you for being here tonight. This has
Thanks
been
for
an
having me.
awesome
Yes,
conversation.
Thanks for having
So
me.
glad that you
Absolutely.
came. So anybody else got any?
You have anything, Abby?
I got nothing.
Well, I want to thank Senator Pizzo for
Jessica.
coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Learned a lot from you, and appreciate you holding our Republicans to account. I think that's very important. So thank you for that. You can check us out on Instagram at We the Locals FL. You can check us out on X at We the Locals FL and Facebook We the Locals. You can check us out on our website at WeTheLocalsPodcast.com. Check out all of our episodes there. You can also email us if you have any questions about sponsorships or want to give any of our questions, or if you have questions for Senator Pizzo, we'll make sure to get them to him. You can email us at WeTheLocalsFL@gmail.com. Have a great night, everybody, and be sure to stay local.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Merry Christmas.